Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process in discussions between the authors, narrators, producers, and post-production teams that bring them all together, as well as guests who have listened to the audiobooks and have questions for the creative teams. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. And today I am with Lon Ballinger, author of Party Boys: How the Ballinger Brothers Built the Best Nightclubs in the World. Lon has been a leader and innovator in the nightclub industry for over 40 years, opening and operating Webster Hall, Big Bop, Go-Go, Rocket, Ballinger's, American Beauty, Heartbreak Hotel, and the Boom Boom Room. He also started the successful label Webster Hall Records. Lon, welcome.
Well, thank you, Becky. I'm pleased to be on your show with you.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Thank you.
Let's jump in and talk a little bit about your audiobook. So you recorded your own audiobook, and
yes,
I would love to hear from you, and I know our listeners would, about what that was like for you, your decision to record it yourself, and then what the process was like.
Well, it was kind of like writing the book. When I was in the nightclub business for 40 years, and I saw a lot of changes and a lot of things happen over those 40 years. And I thought it would be a great story, considering especially where my brothers and I came from, which was a farm in Canada. And we started probably on the wrong side of the tracks and ended up in New York City for 30 years. And I wanted to tell a story. And I thought, well, I'll find somebody to help me with the story. But as I was going through it, I realized nobody would know that story except me. So I would have to sit down and really write it out and tell the truth. And it was like a memoir. So I did the same thing with the book. I thought about it. Then I thought, well, who would be able to tell the story in the same way that I could? And I needed to do that. So I had a lot of experience that I've had from being in this kind of business. And I thought, well, I could do it, and perhaps my voice would be all right. And I had the luxury of, after I sold Webster Hall in New York in 2017, and I started having grandchildren. And I got to be a good provider, or a good, not provider, a good resource for them. I was always available, and I was the guy putting them to bed, and I read them their stories at night all the time. So I thought I could read a book, and I did it. And you know something, in the end, I did a really good job.
Yes, you did.
I felt that I could put the right nuances on the words and the right emphasis on the situations as they came up, so that it would give my story genuineness and the truthfulness that I really wanted it to have, because I didn't want to write a sensational book. I really did this book for I started doing it for my grandchildren, because I thought, well, I'm going to go one day and they're not going to know really, except from dribs and drabs, of how are they able to leave Canada and end up in America, and what got them there. And I thought I'd need to tell the story as good as I could. And I wanted them to have a good story about good things, and not all about the bad and the terrible stuff. So I realized that 40 years, particularly 30 years in New York City with a 3,000 person nightclub and keeping it at the top of the heap. I mean, I lasted 30 years. Studio 54 lasted 30 months.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal to have lasted. That's why I took claim as the greatest nightclub operator of all time, because this is a hard city, New York. And to stay on top and to follow the trends and to not get into trouble with the police or to get into trouble with the tax man or anybody that could arise in a city like New York, I thought, well, it took doing things right. You really couldn't cut corners. I didn't want to leave a bad trail. So I thought, well, I did it, and I wanted to explain it to them. And as I did that, I realized I was maybe writing a really good story for young people or entrepreneurs because, we started with nothing. We came from very little. We had no education, and yet we had passion and hard work, and we had honesty and reliability. And I think that I wanted that message to get across, and I wanted to do it in an entertaining and fun way that people could, resonate to or understand. So that was my motive.
Yeah, that's nice. You mentioned that you about reading the bedtime stories to the kids, and certainly talked with many professional narrators now who, when they were getting started, asked, well, what should I do? And I said, well, start with reading bedtime stories to your kids, because it's such a great, it's like a great training ground, for really becoming a narrator.
And they're so, they'll listen to you. They listen to every word you're saying like it's the gospel truth. So, you're trying to please them when you're telling the stories. And I thought, well, I could read my book back that way and do it in a pleasant way or an interesting way that wouldn't have people falling asleep or turning it off too quickly,
Yeah.
So
now
happened.
I know that you didn't record at the bedside of your grandkids.
No.
Tell us about how you found your studio and what your next step was.
Well, I've been working with Frank Ina. He has a studio in my little town. I lived in Westchester. I live actually close to Mount Kisco, and he has a studio there. And I've used him to do some other podcasts that I created after we sold Webster Hall, and I'm going to make as a special add-on for this audiobook. And Frank was really good and patient with me, but he's also a top pro. So I knew that I had actually bought a little recording device for myself. Then I thought, I'm not going to get these levels right. I'm going to not be able to edit as well as I think a book like this should have. So Frank stepped in, and it turned out to be a fairly big production. It probably took us 40 hours to come up with, maybe even more, I'm adding it up, but probably maybe 100 hours to come up with a 5-hour audiobook. So there was a lot of editing. You got to get rid of those pregnant pauses, and you want to get rid of those, your lips smacking together. And I was working with a top pro. Frank is one of the, I don't know if you folks get that, but he is a teen titan on the children's cartoon shows. And so he's a real pro, and he has a studio, and he does audio books, and he helps guys like me with other little projects. So, and he performed at Webster Hall too.
Oh, cool.
So, it all worked out well.
Yeah, that's great. And so in the post-production process, when he was, after you'd done the recording and then he was working on the editing, were you working with him during that editing process and listening in?
A lot of it, but as we got to know each other and figure things out, as we went through the process, there became a real trust factor. And, we just looked at this and said, listen, there's a lot of fussing. He really tightened it up and made flow properly. So he didn't need me sitting in a chair to do that, So we did the actual recording, and then he did a lot of the editing, and then we finished up the intro and the preface, and we've got a few little changes that we're going to make, which we'll get done in the next little while, and then the audiobook's ready to go.
Yeah. Great. And you mentioned how you realized through the writing and the recording process that this was really, that you have something that's quite special that you can share in terms of, teaching and consulting. What are some of the things that you have recognized are areas where you would like to be able to serve more in, with teaching and consulting?
Well, I think that was in the nightclub business for 40 years. I've been married for 53 years. So I'm a really reliable person. I can get things done and make things work. I think that my great strength was always being able to see the whole playing field and putting in a sense of calmness and practicality that I bring to it. Maybe that's my Canadian farm boy heritage, but I think that the important thing is the ability to be able to really listen to what people are telling you and then to respond on it and to be very truthful and practical with people. I dealt with a lot of police. I dealt with a lot of security issues. I dealt with a lot of personalities, a lot of design issues. And I feel my great strength was being able to actually listen to the people, add to it, and then get the job done and get it fixed up. So I was looking at Colin Jost and Pete Davidson that just bought the Staten Island Ferry, and they're doing, they're Saturday Night Live performers. And here in New York City, I said, I would be just so helpful for these young guys to come in and help them with their security, with their staff, with I had a staff of 170 people. 60 of them never left me in the full time I was at, the nearly 30 years I was at Webster Hall. So I have real good patience with people. And I think that I'm not a big shot and I'm not trying to always, make myself the know-it-all. I really strive listening and paying attention and then acting on properly on a consensus. And I think people respond well to that.
Yeah. I think that speaks volumes, having that many people staying with you, that says a lot about the kind of environment that you created for them as a team.
Well, also, too, in the 30 years, we never had one sexual harassment. We never got sued by anybody. When the Bataclan issue happened in Paris, the New York police called all the public assembly owners together in New York, and they told them to run their places the way Webster Hall runs theirs. And we took that as the kind of compliment that we needed to hear. Well, I didn't need anybody to tell me what a great night they had. I was always dealing with police issues or community issues, business issues. And I think that we manage that really well. The key to success in most businesses is proper management of your people, to respect people. I treated everybody that ever worked for me as if they were my partner. We're all earning money from this place. We're all in this together. I could go a couple months and not earn any money if we were in a slump, but I couldn't whine about that and complain about that because, these people showed up every Friday and Saturday night and they worked all night to help us out and make sure that we, were successful and could keep on being successful. 30 years in the nightclub business, you're bound to have ups and downs and times when you need to recalibrate. And I think we did a really good job of identifying that stuff and doing it. So yeah, I think I could see us going in. I also have a good team of young guys. We're still busy. We've got a bunch of things on the go here that we're doing, and clubs and bars and restaurants and hotels and every one of them are doing great. So love to go in and help somebody who's having a little trouble, a few little problems, and be able to and just give them advice and kind of be like a life coach, a corporate life coach. Myself, right. I'm in the 70s now, but I feel good and I feel healthy, and I'm my mind still seems active, and I'm excited. I can honestly tell you that my big motivating factor, what kept me going always, was I wanted to be successful. I never really thought about the money so much. The money would come if you were successful, or usually comes, but So I thought success, and success was like building something that's also sustainable, because you don't want to always have to go and tweak and refit or try to be the flavor of the day. So I try to help create a sense of longevity and how it can stay that way, and the importance of your team captains and your managers and how important they are. We never lost our people. They stayed with us. And when we left, Becky, we were the only guys that ever stayed, as I said, 30 years in New York City, in the East Village.
It's impressive.
When I wrote the book, I realized afterwards, I thought, what I sold, I was paralyzed from the shoulders up. I was like, oh man, 40 years of running that animal and dealing with all the issues I dealt with. I just needed a little time to think. But after years, I thought, oh my goodness, I got to tell that story. I got to out there and let people know. And I wanted to inspire young people and really emphasize how important good relationships were, how important integrity was over money. All the rest of the stuff can fall into place. But it's like you need to have people who believe you and follow you. And 30 years, I can't tell you that things didn't happen in a 3,000 person nightclub, but I can tell you I dealt with it immediately and would work with the people, and I would take some of the blame because, a police captain once told me in my precinct, he says, "You're the only nightclub owner I ever heard in my life that took the blame for anything." There was a whole series of what they call buy-in cells, where drug dealers get into the club and they sell little drugs to people. Well, a lot of the time they think the club people are involved in that. So, they brought us in and they talked about it, and I had told them no. He said, well, maybe you brought in, maybe some of your staff was in on it. And I said, no, if anybody was to blame, it would have been me, because I had to change my promotions because my rent being tripled and I needed to make more money to survive. So I brought in these promoters, and I'll get rid of them. And that's when the police inspector said, "You're the only guy who ever admitted he made a mistake to me." And I thought how important that is to recognize that. After that, that policeman helped me and supported me and made sure that he respected my opinion, because I took a little blame. And I just kind of point that out in the book, how most it's when you see they're blaming other people, and really, it reminds me of security. In my book, I write a story about security when we were first starting out in Canada, and how my brothers and I got beat up. And the very first year or two, we owned our very first big nightclub. We were just kids, and the Hells Angels came in and beat the hell out of us. And Steve, my brother, was in the hospital, and I was all cut up. And I called the police for help, and the police came, and the big sergeant came, and he started yelling at me. He said to me, "You sold them the booze. You let them in here. Then you couldn't handle them. And then you called me to look after your problems. You want to learn how to run a nightclub? You want me to come in and run that nightclub for you?" And it scared the living daylights out of me that this big man with this big red face was yelling at me. He had no interest in catching the perpetrators at all. And he said to me, "They're going to be back out I can arrest them. They're going to be back out and circling your building tomorrow and looking at you. Is that what you want? You get your trip together." And I listened to that man. I didn't phone his police chief up and give him heck about how he talked to me. I thought he was right. He taught me a lesson. So a lot of it was about listening. And that policeman respected me because I went out there and got people that could be a professional on the front door and handle any trouble that came in. And from that, and for the next 40 years, we handled club security properly. We treated it with respect. And I think that was really important, was the I wanted to teach lessons about listening and when to spot changes and how to make effect on your business. So I think the book covered it all. I went from we were little kids until the last day I was at Webster Hall. We started in the club business in 1977, and we sold in 2017. And I've been, busy with my grandkids and helping my sons with their businesses. And like I told you, I'm ready to help other people if they want a little help too.
Yeah. That whole thing about both having integrity, but also about being able to take responsibility. I think that's such an important thing. And I remember just some, readings and trainings and many things, many situations where the message about how when we are able to take responsibility for our own lives, then we actually are empowering ourselves instead of giving all the power away to, someone else is to blame. So, which is disempowering. When we can take responsibility, then we recognize, I can take responsibility for this. This means I have some agency over the situation. I can make a difference.
Yeah, I felt that way the whole time I was there. I always thought that, when I was doing something, that there is no that I have to build the road. I have to make the journey, and I have to do it right because people are watching me. I don't want to get into trouble, and I don't want to have issues with people, and I don't want anything that isn't mine. That's why, they talk about the other club guys in New York, and they last a year, 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5, and they all get put in jail for stealing the government's sales tax money, or because they wanted to take all the cash for themselves. And we never abided by that. We just really tried to follow the rules. I had a very, very tough mother, and I lived a very, I wouldn't say poverty, but close to poverty type life, growing up. And I had to learn the fundamentals of things, or I suffered the consequences. And I felt that the police were just like my mother. And I had to do what they told me to do because I didn't want to have trouble with those guys. Like I didn't want to have trouble with my mother either.
Yeah. Let's take a short pause. We'll be right back. Would you like to earn more from your audiobook sales? If you're an author with an audiobook, you may have noticed that royalties from Audible especially, and other platforms as well, are frankly kinda pathetically low, disappointingly low, and unfairly low considering what it cost you in effort and resources to create it. How is it the retailers are the ones making all the money off your work and investment? As someone who started in the audiobook industry in 1981, I've found it frustrating that authors keep getting shortchanged. The good news is that Pro Audio Voices just launched Amplify Audiobooks, a direct sale audiobook platform for authors that puts you back in the driver's seat. Earn 65% of the gross sales price that you set. Compare that to the percentage of the percentage that retailers give. Run promotions on schedule whenever you want. Create coupon codes. Build community with your customers since you'll know who they are and how to contact them. Work with a caring, responsive, supportive team to help you succeed all along the way. Get help with marketing. Get paid weekly. We're helping audiobook authors who are frustrated by painfully low royalties and the barriers that prevent them from managing their own products and customers. Amplify Audiobooks is a direct sale platform that enables authors to earn much higher royalties and have way more control. We're disrupting the audiobook industry by putting authors first. Get started today at proaudiovoices.app or go to proaudiovoices.com and click on the Distribution Amplify link. Join the movement. I want to circle back to something that you had said earlier about longevity and building longevity in the business, but that you also in your audiobook there is also and in your career the element of keeping up with what's current. So having that foundation of longevity, and yet also, and I think very much fits into what you're talking about being able to listen, paying attention to what are the trends currently, what's new, what would be a good fit for our club.
Yes. Well, that's by going to, the conferences, listening to your staff when they're talking to you, because a lot of people that gravitate, especially young people, they're excited about that business. They may know the music better than you do. I found out about hip hop from my staff. I found out about electronic dance music from my staff. There were so many things. The internet, well, a young man stopped me at 2:00 in the morning back in 1990 and explained the internet to me. I had no idea what he was talking to me about, it was 2:00 in the morning, and I invited him to come see me the next day when I had a little time, and he did. And we were the very first nightclubs to get online and sell our tickets online and to use the internet for what it was meant to be used for marketing and self-promotion. So we got on that really early and paid attention to it. But, I think a large part of our strength, when I tell you we had a 3,000 person nightclub, everybody was welcome. We only had one rule: behave yourself. Don't do anything that's going to get us into trouble with the police. Because if you do, we've got to stop you and ask you not to do that, or maybe leave the place. But other than that, we don't have any problem with you, who you are, where you came from, as long as you're polite and you talk to us with respect. And we had that policy from the day we came in. Most clubs try to be so cool to keep everybody out. We never took that approach. We never really cared about celebrity that much, because they're going to leave you the moment another flashier new club opens up. But the regular guy who stood in the rain for 2 hours with his girlfriend waiting to get into your packed out nightclub, to pay you money, to let you search them, to pay for an expensive coat check, to buy expensive drinks, and then to go home and tell all his friends that it was the best night of his life. That's the guy I care about. And I don't care where you came from, as long as you were respectful and good to us. And that's what kept us at the top of the heap for 30 years in New York City, that very attitude. I didn't strive to be the messiah of the nightclub business. I strived to feed my family and to look after people properly and to have a lot of fun and to enjoy myself too, because I did. And, we hosted thousands. Do a little back check on Webster Hall and our history, and you'll see that we were there in front row center for a long time. And it all came about because it worked. People just kept coming, by treating them with respect. They always treated us with respect. And maybe we put through 30 million people, but I couldn't count 20 fights on my hands that we ever had in that club. And it was because we knew how to treat people with respect, and our security. We had like 40, 60 huge, big people walking around, keeping an eye on everybody. So it was important to us to try to keep a control of our crowd, run the place.
Yeah. What would you say is what's some of the best advice you've received from others?
Well, when I was a kid and I sold real estate, I always remember I was kind of making fun of this guy's old house, and the man turned around and told me, "That's somebody's home, Lon." And I never forgot that, and I never made a comment about anybody's home again. And my mother would tell me when I was a little kid, keep your eyes on your own plate instead of looking at everybody else's. So, I learned some very practical things in life. My dad taught me, man made it, man can fix it. So a lot of things were just about improving your own attitude, and trying to. So I think a lot of it was about just trying to please people, and as I said, it was very important to me. I never really, in all the 30 years, I never had a line of credit. I didn't own the building. I didn't have a line of credit. The bank doesn't give nightclubs lines of credit. So I had to pay 170 people every week on the money I earned off of beer and ticket sales. So that was a challenge there, but always knowing that I could, if I was a little short, to call the person and to tell them I'm a little short, but I haven't forgotten about you. I'll make sure that I get it to you in the next 2 or 3 months. Would that be okay? And that every time they'd say, that's fine, Lon, don't worry, we get it, because so I think it would be really about accountability, But
yeah, that's such great. That's really great. I think that so often what can happen is when we feel like something's going awry, like we can't meet our responsibilities, people can get scared about that and afraid to talk to the very people that they should be talking to, just as you described. Really treating people like the partners.
That's it. I think that's what you do. You say, we're in this together. We're, you heard, I heard. And I think that's a very important thing to try to get across to your people, and to do that by being that way yourself. I don't remember raising my voice or losing my temper with anybody, because I always felt that if you're in a leadership position, you've got to be calm. You've got to look like you know what you're doing, and not only look like it, but really do know what you're doing. So, you'll be, if people can trust you and know that you're doing your very best to fix up any situation or to accommodate them, they'll bend over backwards. I found in my life too, I got a lot of people in 40 years in the nightclub business would complain about something or other, or something that happened. And I found all they really wanted was for me to listen to them, not to give them an answer. They have their own answer. They know there's sometimes very little that can be done about it. They just wanted me to listen to them and to make sure that I heard their point of view. And I did. And I would never yell at them or get mad at them about it. I just let them vent and get it out of their system. And then they like you so much afterwards, because you at least had the patience to listen to what they had to say to you, even though you might not be able to do much about it.
Yeah. So coming back to your book and your audiobook, what impact would you like to have with, for your listeners, for your readers? What would you like them to take away from the experience?
Well, I'd like them to walk away with what my theme for the thing was: nice guys don't always finish last. They don't always get sand kicked in their face. The thing to do is you've still got to have that intestinal toughness and inside you. But I would like them to walk away with the hope that I'm trying to is for. I believe in the power of the small businessman, and I believe that this book would benefit most small businessmen, just in attitude and how to survive and how to work through situations. So I'd like this book to be kind of, honestly, I wouldn't mind if it got taught as a course in some school, because it has a lot of good advice about people. It's a good way to send a kid off into the business world, this book. And I deliberately did that. I didn't want to write a sensationalistic book. I did have chapters and chapters of the musicians and the actors and the people I met and the impact they had on me. But most of them were so positive. So I really wanted it to be a story about looking on the bright side of things, being a half full guy, realizing how important it is and what a great opportunity. I think we all won the lottery just by being born. I'm that kind of a guy. And I believe that, I don't understand the mega stuff. And what are they so mad about? This is what a great country we have. We should be honored and just so happy to be here and to be part of it. And we don't get that long to live. I can't believe where the years went. I still feel like I'm a young man, but now all of a sudden I'm into my golden years, and wow, what a wonderful life I look back on. And I just like to share some of that ideology with people. That's really my goal.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So do you think that, people who are heading into business or running a small business, are those the folks that might benefit most from your teaching and consulting that you
yes,
like to be doing?
I think so. I think even big corporations, they get caught up in themselves. I think I could come in and help them look at their, gauge their morale, the team morale. I could look at their operations, whether they're successful or not. In Webster Hall, it was a 40,000 square foot building. I used every square inch, and it was going all the time. I mean, you can't put 30 million people through a building in those 30 years unless you're using every square inch for something or other, So I like to show people how to get a little more out of their product and not offend people by doing it,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's clear to me that you have a lot to offer, and in that, to people who are in business, entering into business, and I think just also as a being in life, just being people who are seeing that life from the half full side of things.
Yeah, I tried with this book to inspire people. I really laid it out. I wasn't, I didn't brag about myself. We made lots of mistakes, and I put them in the book and the story. But it wasn't about the mistakes. It's how you managed. It's, that even that saying, failing forward, instead of falling backwards and crying and feeling sorry for yourself. Take the good out of it. Take the little bit of good. You didn't put all that effort and work into it for no reason at all. You put it in for a lot of reasons. Take that good stuff and move forward with it and get rid of the bad stuff that dragged you down. So it was meant to inspire people and to let people know that, I'm a high school dropout. I didn't have an amazing childhood, but I always had a positive nature, and how important it is to maintain a positive nature, and to also warn you, don't do something if you don't have the passion for it. Don't set yourself up for failure. Make sure whatever it is you do that you feel that passion, and it's okay if you don't have it. Maybe you'll find it somewhere else, but don't beat yourself up on something. A passion and a clear mind, and of course a good idea and a little talent doesn't hurt. But you really want to think about your passion. Do I feel it? Do I wake up thinking about it? Do I go to sleep thinking about it? That's how I treated my business. I thought, oh my God, I'm in New York City and I'm at this big nightclub, and that is Mick Jagger, that is Madonna, that is Tom Petty. They're playing on my stage, working with me, So I was so excited about that stuff and being part of it, that I had a passion. But, I started out cleaning pigs and cattle and picking up after pop bottles out of the side of the road to earn, candy money. So, I wanted to let people know that it's not all about being born into it and nepotism and entitlement. It's about you and having belief in yourself and going through with it,
Yeah, that's great. And you have a podcast that's going to be launching soon. Is that right?
Yes, we're working on a podcast called Party Boys New York, and it's at partyboysnewyork.com, and it's up soon as just starting it, and it's going to be with guys in the business like myself and talking about things that affect us and how we work our way through those situations. So it should be fun for people to maybe tap into also. And
absolutely. Yeah. And what's the best website where people can learn more about you, about your book, about what you're up to?
well, I have a site right now called ballingervision.com that I've had since Canada days. So they can go there and see what we're doing right now and the thing we're working on. But the new website that we're going to put up is we're using the book as a catalyst for it. And it's called partyboysnewyork.com. So partyboysnewyork.com is the website where they can look at the book, they can check out our history and things that we've done, and but it's all a work in progress.
New York is spelled out, right?
Yes,
not NY.
But I also have pbny.com. Although I can't tell you I have pbny.com for sure. So
okay, all right, great. Well, we'll make sure to put that address in the description for the podcast as well. And I want to thank you so much, Lon Ballinger, author of Party Boys, How the Ballinger Brothers Built the Best Nightclubs in the World. Lon, thank you so much for spending this time with me. It's been delightful.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks, Becky. I appreciate your interest, and all the best for you too, and all the things that you're doing. I know you help a lot of people get their starts and get going. So that's great. And thanks so much.
Thank you. Get your copy of Lon Ballinger's Party Boys, How the Ballinger Brothers Built the Best Nightclubs in the World, now available on Amplify Audiobooks. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.